Chapter 7. Thomas. I looked hopelessly around the cheering arena, as if I'd see something, anything that could save us. My eyes were drawn to the movement from Fletcher. He slipped a hand into his shirt as he stared hard at us, reaching for his wand, no doubt. Maybe there was still a chance. Not for us. I had a feeling we were all going to die here whether I said anything or not. But maybe there was still a way to carry out our plan and pit the bloodcasters against the non-humans. Maybe we could still ruin things for Ilaria, or at least drastically set her back. I took a deep breath, my thoughts racing as I tried to think of the best way to start things off, without egging Victor on or anyone trying to silence me. My eyes went to Fletcher again, and I had an answer. "What exactly are you doing here, Morgan?" I asked loudly. "You can't expect me to believe that you'd give up your magic to become a vampire. Not when you were just going on and on about how great being a blood wizard is." To my delight, Victor's grin faltered, and he turned and looked at me curiously. Ilaria's eyes widened in alarm. This was obviously a complication she hadn't expected. Fletcher laughed weakly in response. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The part where you're a blood wizard, or the part where you're pretending that you want to be a vampire?" I'm not pretending," he spat frantically. "But you're not denying you're a blood wizard," I countered. "Of course I'm denying it. Blood magic isn't even real." "That's funny," Danio drawled. "It felt pretty real when you were hurling it at us left and right." "What's this all about?" Victor demanded.
"It's nothing,"
Ilaria said quickly.
"Let's get this over with."
But it worked. We had Victor's attention now. He jumped down off the platform and strode over to Fletcher. "Are you a blood wizard?" he said. "No, I'm not a blood wizard. Don't be ridiculous," said Fletcher. "Awfully outspoken for a servant, isn't he?" I said. Victor shot me a glare, but then narrowed his eyes at Fletcher.
"Maybe you should check him for a wand,"
Tithys called.
"He doesn't seem like the type who'd give his up readily."
"He doesn't have his wand."
Ilaria snapped.
"None of us do. It's part of our agreement to serve in exchange for being turned."
I couldn't resist a smile as she gave me more ammunition. "When exactly is that going to happen, anyway? You've been here for how long now? 6 years? Has anybody been turned yet? Whose decision is that, anyway? Are you the one who keeps putting it off, or is it Victor?"
"They will turn us when they're ready,"
said Ilaria.
"Yet you keep saying to wait,"
Victor said slowly, turning to her. Ilaria pursed her lips.
"They're trying to distract you,"
she said tightly.
"Don't forget, they're Mez agents. They're lying through their teeth, coming up with anything to manipulate you and delay the inevitable."
"They are Mez agents, aren't they?"
Victor said.
"But Mez agents typically don't lie and manipulate people."
He smiled, and his fangs extended a little.
"That's why I'm not one anymore."
He turned and shot us all a critical look.
"They've been spying on us,"
Ilaria said angrily.
"Yes, they have."
Victor regarded us thoughtfully.
"Maybe they've seen some things that have escaped my notice. It is somewhat odd," he continued, slowly turning back to her, "that you continue to refuse being turned."
It's hardly odd,"
Ilaria began desperately. "Hey," Charlie said suddenly. "Who has been using the memory potion on Reeve?" They all turned to look at him in shock. Ilaria's eyes grew even wider in alarm. "What?" Reeve cried.
"They're lying,"
Ilaria spat. So she was in on it. I'd assumed it was just Victor. She was probably even mixing it. Well, you see, Danio said, ignoring her and raising his voice. Reeve and I had an interesting conversation the other night about that time I fought a berserker, which I'm sure everyone here remembers. There was actually some applause and cheers at the reminder. It seemed that even being a Mez spy didn't fully diminish being able to beat a berserker in a fight. But Reeve didn't remember Cleaver at all. Reeve's eyes narrowed, and he frowned in concern. I assume it's you, right, Victor? I asked. Are you getting it from her? Funny, Danio added, catching right on. I thought she was in love with Reeve. Pretty fucked up if she's been erasing his memory with you. Almost like she has some sort of other plans. The three of them all looked back and forth between each other.
They're trying to divide us.
Ilaria said angrily.
Can't you fools see that?
Yes,
Victor tilted his head and regarded her curiously.
yet they bring up some extremely interesting points as they try.
You've been using a memory potion on me? Reeve demanded, suddenly finding his voice.
They're lying.
Ilaria said.
Please, my love, you know I would never betray you.
If you love him so much, why don't you kiss him? Danio said. I don't think I've ever seen you do it. Ilaria glared at him, but Reeve's brow creased in concern. While you're at it, go ahead and let him turn you. No reason to keep putting it off, I called. You never kiss me, Reeve said, stepping back from her. And you have been putting off being turned.
I'm waiting until our plans are all in place, until the time is...
Excuses, snarled Reeve. Just more excuses. If not now, when?
soon.
You've been saying that for 6 years, Adira. Anguish crossed his face as realization slowly dawned. You don't want to be turned. You never have. Why?
Just kill them.
Ilaria snapped.
They're trying to ruin everything.
Ruin it for you, maybe, Charlie said. She shot a furious look at him, then turned toward Victor and Reeve.
Please,
She begged.
you wouldn't really believe them over me, would you?
Something about her changed. I couldn't put my finger on it, but all at once she seemed oddly, disturbingly attractive. Alluring, even. I realized in alarm she was using her stolen siren powers, trying to beguile herself back into their favor. Luckily, I wasn't the only one who noticed. Love the castle, by the way, Ilaria, Danio said. Her shoulders went stiff, and she froze as Victor and Reeves's brows furrowed in confusion. It looks a lot better than your tacky pink one on Mystic Key. I'd offer some suggestions, but you already took care of that one. Danio went on. Slowly, incredulously, Ilaria turned to gape at him, mouth hanging open in complete shock. Pretty dramatic the way you sank the whole damn thing under our feet like that. Danio continued, grin widening as utter horror crossed Ilaria's face. Was that arcanism, or just regular blood magic? For a long moment, silence hung in the air as Victor and Reeve looked back and forth between Danio and Ilaria in confusion, and Ilaria stood motionless, completely stunned. Then she flew into motion. With a speed I could hardly follow, she whirled toward Danio, drawing a knife. She hurled it through the air toward him. My heart leapt into my throat. Then I heaved a sigh of relief as he twisted aside. Barely. Knife slashing across his upper arm, then mostly harmlessly sailing by. Victor's hand shot out, and he grabbed Ilaria's outstretched wrist, jerking her arm down.
How dare you?
He began.
Don't touch me, filthy beast.
She snarled. She wrenched her arm free while slamming him in the chest with her other hand. The force of her blow threw Victor to the ground, hard. Countless gasps of shock filled the arena, followed by silence as Victor climbed to his feet, staring at Ilaria. She clenched her fists and took a step away from him, obviously realizing that she had just used far too much of her force and speed.
Victor, please.
Ilaria said slowly.
Let's just deal with them, and then we can talk about this in private.
No, he said coldly. We will talk about it now.
Let's not be hasty,
She said, obviously struggling to regain her calm facade.
They know they've lost. They're willing to spout any sort of nonsense to save themselves.
Yet you seem to understand this nonsense,
Snarled Victor. He bared his fangs and took a threatening step toward her.
as if everything they're saying makes perfect sense to you.
She held her ground, but he advanced again. Then, to my complete shock, Ilaria screamed,
Don't just stand there, you fools! Draw your wands and help me!